Welcome to the Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015 meeting of the Hot Springs Board of Directors. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Dr. Michael Maddox, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand with me?
Thank you, Mayor and Directors. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Lord, our Judeo-Christian heritage reaches all the way back into our Hebrew ancestors of the faith and extols the testimony of one Nehemiah, the king's cupbearer. His was no easy task at all. He was to muster faith and hope and lift himself beyond his sadness, to encourage his leaders to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. As it had fallen in shambles and was torn asunder by war and neglect, Nehemiah's steps toward rebuilding the city began with simply rebuilding the city walls. You grant to each one here similar tasks. Some involve rebuilding walls that have fallen down due to neglect and strife. Others, like those in Nehemiah's time, dig trenches and plant great gardens. In the great work of rebuilding, keep us from self-destructing. Save us from jealousy, spite, and dissension. Unite our efforts into one great cause of restoration and hope. May the vision of the beautiful city drown out the other voices that clamor to be heard, those voices of self-interest and conceit. Many already have a glimpse of that beautiful city. May it flourish. May it be nurtured day by day, step by step, stone by stone, decision by decision, until all find comfort and shelter and are able to live lives that reflect your glory. Empower these decision makers, O God, these elected officials who devote themselves to this seemingly endless task. Empower them each and every day. And when they grow weary, remind them of Nehemiah. I pray this in the name of the one who is named by different names and cherished by even more, the great God of heaven and earth. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hereby call this meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, please. Davidson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Raymond.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
Carney.
Here. Thank you. The first item of business is to consider the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any corrections, additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda, including items, if any, to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion is adopted. The next item of business is to consider the approval of the minutes for the board meetings, the regular meeting held on January the 20th and the special meeting held on January the 20th. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions, or modifications to the minutes for those meetings? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as... Do I have... Okay, is that...
Sorry for the interruption,
okay.
Mayor.
That's okay, go ahead. As presented?
I move for the approval of both sets of minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. It is approved. In an effort to afford each and everyone an orderly opportunity to address the items on tonight's agenda, I ask that each one of you Adhere to the 3-minute limit on your comments. For your convenience, we will display a clock timer on the monitors, and out of respect for each other, we ask that you please honor this request. While members of the board may have questions of the speakers, I ask that any general comments by the board members be reserved for the board discussion after all speakers have been heard. We also ask that you please silence your cell phones during the meeting, and please refrain from any disruptions of the meeting. And if you should leave before we are finished, we ask that you do so quietly. If your item of interest is already over and you decide to leave, we ask that you not communicate with people on your way out, but we will still be in session. So we thank you for that. And we want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your presence in our meeting and for your interest in the issues that our city is concerned with, and we appreciate your time. At this time, we have, actually, we don't have the guest to be recognized. It was the Health Department in Little Rock, and I have a proclamation to read on National Wear Red Day, which is for cancer awareness and women's health. And I'm going to read the proclamation. They came by earlier and had the pictures made, but Matt Henry is the contact person for that, and I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas heart disease is the number one killer of women, yet 80% of cardiac events can be prevented. Okay. And whereas cardiovascular disease causes 1 in 3 women's death each year, killing approximately 1 woman every minute, and whereas an estimated 44 million women in the U.S. are affected by cardiovascular disease, and whereas 90% of women have 1 or more risk factors for developing heart disease, yet only 1 in 5 American women believe that heart disease is her greatest health threat. And whereas since 1984, more women than men have died each year from heart disease, and whereas women comprise only 24% of participants in all heart-related studies, and women are less likely to call 911 for themselves when experiencing symptoms of heart attack than they are if someone else were having a heart attack, and whereas only 43% of African American women and 44% of Hispanic women know that heart disease is their greatest health risk compared to 60% of Caucasian women. Whereas women involved with the American Heart Association Go Red for Women movement live healthier lives, nearly 90% have made at least one healthy behavior change. Whereas Go for Red for Women is asking all Americans to go red by wearing red and speaking red. Get your numbers, ask your doctor to check your blood pressure and cholesterol, own your lifestyle, stop smoking, lose weight, exercise, and eat healthy, raise your voice, advocate for more women-related research and education, educate your family, make healthy food choices for you and your family, teach your kids the importance of staying active, and don't be silent. Tell every woman you know that heart disease is their number one killer. Raise your voice at goredforwomen.org. Now, therefore, I, Ruth Carney, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs, do hereby proclaim February 6th as National Wear Red Day in Hot Springs, Arkansas. In witness whereof I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed on the 3rd day of February in the year of our Lord, 2013. So what we're asking is that it was requested that all of the city employees, if possible, wear red on Friday. And somewhere we need to take a picture of all the ones that do that, and we're going to send it to Little Rock to the Heart Association, and they will publish that. They're trying to get all of the different organizations and businesses to wear red on Friday to help us remember that the number one killer for women is heart disease. So we challenge you to do that, and if you could get a group together and take a picture and send it to Sheila at cityhs.net. I think hers is Sheila, what is it? Or we could send it to Terry either.
S. Winter
at cityhs.net. That would be great just to send those pictures to her, or Terry, which is T. Payne at cityhs.net. So get together with a bunch of people wearing red on Friday and do that, okay? And remember what it's for. Okay, thank you very much. We have, do we have any other guests that you would like to recognize? Okay, I met someone, and I didn't write his name down, but he's a Boy Scout, or is he? There he is. Would you stand up for us? And he's working on one of his badges for for citizenship. What is your name again? Aaron Humphrey, and we're so glad to have you here tonight, and we thank you for coming and bringing your dad to make him sit through this too. That's good. Thank you. Okay, and we are excited that all of you are here, and we thank you for your presence. We will now hear our city manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Seeing Jim Fram in the audience reminds me of the chamber ribbon cutting with Regions Bank that was held yesterday at the site of their former bank building over here at Malvern and Broadway. Exciting day. The bank is going to be rebuilding a two-story structure with parking deck. Regions is making a major investment in downtown Hot Springs, and the regional director of Regions, made that point that they've been in downtown for a long time, and they will continue to be in downtown a long time. And that's probably one of the most significant projects the city has seen in its downtown core in quite some time. So congratulations to Regions, the Chamber, for a great event. Secondly, you may have noticed over at the Tourist Information Center parking lot at Hill Wheatley Plaza, there was a major repaving with a striping of parking angles. Looks great. We're getting ready for the spring and summer, and I want to compliment the city crews and the contractor for doing an excellent job. One thing that we're being asked a lot about that I wanted to highlight, we had a holdup in the disbursement of our community development block grant monies, partially due to a more stricter interpretation of environmental assessment by HUD. But nonetheless, we've passed that hurdle. We now have clearance from HUD Regional to begin the following 5 projects. And I know a lot of people in the community, people on this board, have worked with the various groups getting these projects done, or at least to the point of construction. The 5 that received funding approval as of last week include the Silver and Crescent sidewalk improvements, the Malvern sidewalk improvements, ADA accessibility over at our AME Visitors Chapel over by the Convention Center, sidewalk improvements on Illinois and Montreal streets, and architectural barrier work at the Ouachita Children's Center.
Yes.
So you'll be seeing that work begin here very soon. And thanks to Michelle Sestili, Kathy Selman, Lance Spicer, the Gateway groups, the Whittington Park Avenue, the board members who have really been pushing this, and the taxpayers for paying their taxes so we can do projects like this. Other projects that are of interest, if you've had a chance to go down Valley Avenue between Grand to Belding, there's really quite a transformation taking place there. A lot of properties have been cleaned up. We have our new skateboard park there. We have our recycling center there. But what's going on now is really exciting. The Runyon Street Bridge, which was not long enough to accommodate the flood events that go through that channel, is being torn down and rebuilt into a longer span, which will provide a place where the trail can actually go under the bridge, not over the street, which is one of the goals of our Greenway, is to minimize the number of conflict points between pedestrians and autos. Also, if you continue down the Greenway Trail and you come to Adams Street, there was a gap in the trail, and we're right now putting in what's called the Blue Heron Trail, which will provide that connectivity from where it currently ends to the section that was built behind our utility warehouse area. And then we've applied for a grant, feel pretty confident we'll get it, which will take the trail from where it currently ends along the creek down to golf links. And then we're continuing to work on acquiring right-of-way and easements to take the trail all the way down to Lake Hamilton, which is the goal. Also this year, we'll have a pedestrian connection between Transportation Depot and the promenade behind Bathhouse Row. There will be some accentuated brick crosswalks, signs, with the purpose being to take our visitors from who are at the promenade and Bathhouse Row and connect them to the Greenway. And so that was funded by a transportation grant with assistance from the National Park Service. So you'll see that project underway here quickly also. Let's see if I have one more. Oh, this one's kind of interesting. This project that Bill Burrow and Diddy McFate have been working on that was mentioned at the Downtown Merchants meeting this morning. If you drive up Central and you come to where Bath Street, I guess, used to be, connecting the Exchange Street parking lot with Bathhouse Row, that is a very difficult crosswalk to notice if you haven't been here before, or even if you have. And even though we have a crosswalk sign, it's really kind of difficult to ascertain, and we've had some near accidents there. Bill went to a National League of Cities meeting and got some ideas what other cities in similar situations are doing. And so we're going to be putting in an LED light that will be vertical that will, when you push your button, being a pedestrian, it will light up with LED lights. So if you're a motorist, you're going to see that, particularly at dusk or times when it's difficult to see pedestrians anyway. So that will be installed sometime, I'm guessing, in the spring. So, Mayor, that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item of business is announcements concerning upcoming events from our Board of Directors. Yes, Mr. Foley.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of items. Number one is on March 7th, we're going to see the first day of opening of a newly remodeled Mid-America Science Museum. I'm shouting out early on that because it'll give me an opportunity to say it a couple more times. If you've not been out there, well, you can't go out there right now. They're undergoing total renovation, but I think the public is going to be extremely well pleased when they see the results of that. Also, I was looking through the Resort Talk, which is a publication of the Visit Hot Springs for the Convention Center, and I noted in the next 2 weeks there are over 12,000 people new coming into town, over 20,000 for the month. That does not include anything at Oak Lawn and the racetrack. So just for people who don't know what to do, go to Visit Hot Springs, and there's plenty there to see. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Announcements upcoming?
Oh, I know.
You have one.
I always have one, Mayor.
Okay.
Don't forget this month, starting, today was Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Yes,
Black History Month starts. And there's a lot of interesting things that blacks did and made and worked for. And when he was talking about Nehemiah, I says, I wonder was Nehemiah black? How hard as he worked building that wall and all that. But anyway, on Saturday, Pleasant Street will have their meeting, their second meeting of the year, and we're asking everyone that can and will to please attend. This is a very important meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. What time?
12 o'clock.
Gateway.
Yeah, Gateway. 12 p.m. it would be.
At the Webb Center?
Yes, at Webb Community Center. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. The next item of business is consideration of the consent agenda. Items in this section are of a routine nature and will be considered as one item of business without discussion. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Ramick,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Carney.
Aye.
It's adopted.
It is adopted. The next item of business is to consider resolution number R1512. Council, would you please read the resolution by title?
Resolution R15-12, a resolution condemning certain real property pursuant to ordinance number 4623, 100 Park Avenue, Majestic Hotel property, parcel 55586, red brick and lanai tower structure. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you now entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt, and discussion is from you.
Mayor, now that this is on the floor for discussion, I know this has been tabled previously by the board and set for tonight for your further consideration. We've been working with ADQ. ADQ has a very solid deadline set with the property owner of March the 5th for them to have matters cleared. We're not optimistic that that's going to happen, but that is the deadline that they gave us. I would ask that we consider things after that deadline has passed. We'll know more of what we're dealing with and what ADQ will help us with after that. So the next meeting after March the 5th would be the 17th. However, you've had previous discussions about the 17th. There's going to be a concert outside of your earshot during the meeting time, so there was brief conversation about when you were going to meet on the 17th or if you were going to move it. But in any event, I would ask that the board table this until your second meeting in March, which currently is scheduled for the 17th.
I'd move to table the motion until the first time we have an opportunity to meet in March for the second meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move this to the 17th or the second meeting of March. Any discussion? Anybody? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have people signed up, so we just wait on that, have them come back. We have several of you that wanted to speak to that issue, and since we're not ready for it yet with all of the details from ADEQ, we ask that you please come back and sign up again with your comments. But we appreciate you being here for this time. And the next item of business is to consider resolution number R1514. Council, would you please read the resolution by title?
Resolution R-15-13, a resolution approving expenses for claims against
There we go.
Employee Wellness Fund in excess of balances. That concludes your reading. We would now entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and our staff person is Doretha.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Doretha Yates, Finance Director of the city, and I'll be leading out the discussion. We're discussing our Employee Wellness Fund. Minnie Lennox, our HR Director, will also be here and probably answer some of the other questions that you've got. Earlier this year, the board discussed the insurance premiums for our Employee Wellness Fund, and you agreed to adopt a resolution to increase those premiums by 3% over the next 5 years. At that time, that was at the end of October, I believe, or September, and we had a loss of about $700,000. That time we were hoping for a good month in October, November, and December. We did not have those months. And at the end of the year, the numbers I gave you previously indicated that we had a loss of $1.1 million. We did receive some information today that we have reimbursements coming back of about $100,000 for some expenses, so that loss is actually about a little over $1 million now. City of Hot Springs has had a self-funded employee benefits plan since 2003. We've had a number of very good years. We've had some years with losses. The worst loss that we had prior to this year was 2004 with a $600,000 loss. We did recuperate from that loss and came back and had several years of positive numbers. All these years also with good positive numbers or our losses, we had premium increases well below the national average. While some other places were increasing their premiums at high rates, we were able to continue several years with no premium increases. And in those years we did have premium increases, they were quite small. What we're asking you to do at this time is to allow us to do a one-time catch-up and fund this program. We've been looking at it very closely. We've made some changes in the administration of it. We believe things are improving. However, we do caution, and we do plan to continue to look at it very closely on a monthly basis. The last few months, we've provided you that report in your monthly financial packet of exactly what's going on in this fund. So at this point, this resolution calls for a $900,000 one-time funding of this fund. And that would catch up those losses that we have and put us in a much better position. I provided you in your packet with the impact on the different funds of this one-time improvement. On the general fund, it's somewhere around $500,000, and then the other funds, of course, are much smaller. The general fund will absorb not only general fund, but it'll absorb police and fire and street increases as well. So at this time, I close my presentation, and Minnie and I don't know if Minnie had something else she wanted to add to that, but we'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Doretha, even with that adjustment, we're still able to meet our fund balance requirements?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. For the benefit of the public, Doretha, would you explain what funding that means? I mean, we've already spent the money to pay for those medical expenses, correct? So
Yes.
what does that really mean to the public?
The fund has been, we have moved cash out of these different funds and as though it were a loan to meet those requirements. We've actually had those claims against the fund by health providers, and we've paid those health providers. So at this point, what I mean by the funding of the funds, that we would actually, instead of it being instead of the funds borrowing, they would actually give the money to the health insurance fund and claim it as an expense on our income statement.
Thank you.
I think I asked Brian earlier, and he answered my question, but I think it might have been a question other people were wondering about the insurance, the stop-loss insurance. And we've used that, right? And we do pay for it, and we do have it, and this was just in excess.
Currently, we have stop-loss insurance coverage at $85,000 per person. And we have reached that stop-loss on a few of people, but you have to be up to at least $85,000 for that to kick in. We actually, this year, when we were doing our negotiations for the 2015 stop-loss, we looked at the possibility of lowering that amount. But insurance is like anything else. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. So if you lower that amount, then you're going to pay much more in premiums. And at the advice of our consultant, we left it at $85,000 for the 2015 year.
Okay. Yes, sir.
At one of the meetings, I think it was in October when we talked about the rate increase, Director McCabe asked if we should not be taking a closer look at this from a board's perspective, at least start getting some reports so we can identify early if there is a problem. And I had a different position. I didn't feel like we really needed to get into the operation, but that's a $400,000 swing in 3 months. And so I'd like to amend the motion to ask for a quarterly report from our third-party administrator, HealthScope. Are they a medical administrator, or do they just handle the claims?
I think Minnie would be better able to answer that.
Good afternoon. I'm Minnie Lennox, Human Resources Director for the City of Hot Springs. HealthScope Benefits is our third-party administrator. They handle our claims. You're requesting you're requesting quarterly reports. You will be privy to part of the quarterly reports that we get because some of it is subject to HIPAA, because it does have information on the age, the sex, and all information pertaining to individuals.
Well, I hope we could get it blinded so we wouldn't see any employees' names. We should be able to get that blinded.
Some of the reports would not be in there. But yes, we could provide you with quarterly reports.
Yeah. Who does the management for the medical loss ratio? Who does the oversight of medical management? So, for example, when employees run into a special health problem and we know that the costs are going up fast, what intervention process do we have to help that employee either seek alternatives at home or, that's as much beneficial to the employee as it is to the employer, but there's certainly less costly alternatives.
Right. That's also part of the services that our third-party administrator
So
provides. So they do provide that medical side also.
So they do provide medical management and handling of the bills.
Handling of the claims, because we do have case managers that step in when we have that to happen to our employees.
I would like to amend that motion that we get quarterly reports, at least for a year, and make a decision at the end of a year, see if we need to continue to look at them. In fact, if we could put a sunset clause on that, that would be nice as a part of this motion.
Okay.
Quarterly reports for the
Next four
calendar
quarters,
year
yes.
2015. Is there a second to that?
A second.
Okay. We have an amendment to add quarterly reports to this resolution. We have a motion and a second. You have any discussion about that? Anyone?
Can you give us some idea of how long that report will be?
No, sir, I can't.
Is it going to be as long as the board agenda?
Depends on how many people are sick.
Exactly.
My reason for asking for a quarterly report is not because I intend to intervene in what is going on, but it certainly gives us a picture of what's going on and gives the board the opportunity to see what questions they want to ask going forward or how to address the fund going forward. I don't think we have enough knowledge to intelligently ask the questions about managing costs and taking care of our employees.
Can I ask Director Falk, are you actually wanting to see a compilation of all these claims or a summary or?
A summary is fine. I would like it categorized, for example, into those employees that have a stop-loss ratio that exceed 50,000, for example. Or if they anticipate that they're going to go above that, do they fall in certain disease categories, whether they're diabetes, heart care, transplants, whatever they are. Other than that, we don't have a knowledge base to ask intelligent questions to manage this cost.
Minnie, may I ask you, since you deal with it, and both of you all the time, do you suggest a report like that, or is there another way we can do it without having we have, 600 employees?
Yes, we have 650.
And if they're using, it could be an extreme, but is there another way we could monitor that without getting that individual report from each person?
You wouldn't get individual.
We wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't get individual
be,
information.
okay.
It would be possibly according to diseases, but you wouldn't get individual information.
I don't think we should have any individual.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about marking
totally,
out.
it should be totally blinded and summarized as well. I mean, HealthScope knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sorry I can't articulate it, but I do know that they provide management reports for both cash management and expenses and medical loss ratios. They know exactly what I'm talking about. So.
And do we already get anything like that or not? Is that coming? We're just not seeing it ourselves?
We used to provide you all with a report, and we were told to stop. They told us, the board told us to stop because it was too much information.
Okay.
How long ago was that?
It's been a couple of years, but we were providing that information.
So it would be, he's asking for the same thing you were providing before. Is that what we're talking about?
Sort of.
Okay.
What we were providing.
So it
before.
would just be starting again? Yeah. Okay.
I'll work
And
with
that would
her.
be no problem.
All right. So just reinstate what you were doing.
That's no problem.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to amend this to include report quarterly. And all in favor, should we call the roll? Or just aye?
Yeah, you can voice vote or however you.
So it's fine.
Voice vote's fine. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, we'll do that. Okay, now we need to approve the amendment approve the resolution as amended. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And do I have a
Second.
second? I've already done that.
You've already got that.
Okay, let's
Is there-
call the roll on this one.
Yes.
Or have discussion.
Or discussion, anybody, nobody signed up from the city to discuss that one, so do you have any other discussion from the board? Okay, hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Ramick,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
Carney.
Aye.
It is approved.
It is adopted. Okay. The next item of business is to consider resolution number R1514. Council, would you please read the resolution by title?
Resolution R-15-14, a resolution to consider appeal from Board of Adjustments and Appeals, number 14-0241, 231 Central Avenue. That concludes your reading. If you now entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt Resolution R-1514.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second in discussion. Does that come from you?
We could start with Chief Davis.
Chief
Mayor.
Davis, there he is.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
when this first came to the city for an appeal, I was serving on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and with your permission, I'd like to recuse myself on this.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Chief Davis.
While Director Ramick is recusing, I'll remind the board this is a quasi-judicial appeal. This is coming to you on the application of our code to the property in question. Chief Davis will have the burden of proof and the burden of going forward with this, and then we'll hear from the appellant.
Good evening, Directors, Mayor. Tonight we come before you based on an appeal of a decision by the Board of Adjustments and Appeals in their December 17th, 2014 meeting. They had a hearing, made a decision to where they affirmed the actions of the fire department declaring the Wade building located at 239 Central as an unsafe structure. The Wade building in itself is a very, very unique building and very interesting in its design. It is what you would refer as one of the legacy structures in downtown Hot Springs. You can see the building on it listed on the picture in front of you. It is next door to the Arlington Hotel and adjacent to Hot Springs National Park, which would be behind it. In the packet that we've given you, it details the condition of the Wade building as we found it during an inspection done by the fire department on the 26th of February of last year. The report itself has a chronology of events. It lists 15 different issues that we found within the structure, a status report concerning the breaching of rated walls, unsafe corridors, unsafe conditions within the building. The Wade building in itself has a lot of issues, means of egress issues, penetration of rated walls, problems with means of egress, problems with ceilings in some cases that are falling in, problems with walls that have been subjected to water that have sustained quite a bit of damage and are somewhat weakened. The Wade building was one of the original 24 buildings that we in the City of Hot Springs Fire Department had declared as being unsafe in downtown Hot Springs. The details associated with it, are pretty graphic in the pictures we have here. We also have a slideshow that goes along with it as well. One of the things that we found was that the Wade building was unsafe when you compare it to the fire code of the state of Arkansas. It's unsafe because of inadequate means of egress. It was unsafe because it was a fire hazard. It's unsafe because it was a threat to public health and welfare. It was also an improper occupancy, inadequate maintenance, and in general, just unsafe condition. Any of those in itself that I just named could make the building unsafe. We have multiple conditions like that in existence in this building.
Okay. You have any comments on? Okay, that's the presentation. We have several people signed up to talk, and we may call you back. Let's see. Signed up, we have Thomas Stone.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the board, my name is Tom Stone. I'm a lawyer out of Little Rock. I live here in Hot Springs, and I represent the Arlington Hotel Company. The purpose of my presentation this morning is going to be shorter. I did provide some pictures of what the building looks like today. Now, the Arlington Hotel has owned this building for...
Mr. Stone, will you pull that a little bit closer? I'm having a...
Well, it said stand back. So
No, don't stand back too far.
Step forward, stand
Yeah.
back. Okay. Now, do I have 3 minutes?
Yes, you do.
From when?
From right now.
Okay.
That's
I
true.
try to watch.
We hadn't even started yet.
Okay.
Because I couldn't hear you.
I watched many a clock in the courtroom before.
Oh, my, that's going fast.
Ooh.
It's good.
Is it set?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my. Okay, let's go. Fast forward.
The thing about this is we don't have a problem with what the chief wants to do, except that we think he's wrong in what he wants to do. First of all, we don't think it's an unsafe building because the requirement is not just that it be unsafe, but it has a distinct hazard to life and property. Now, it's not structurally unsound. It's made out of steel and concrete and has no wooden structures inside it other than some doors and whatnot. It was originally used as an accounting office and as storage for the papers used in the accounting office. Some years ago, that was discontinued. That the occupancy hasn't changed. The use is still as a storage place for financial records, but it's no longer used in the accounting office. There's no individuals working in that on a day-to-day basis. Now, we've listed several things in our appeal. One is we think this is is retroactive in effect. The code that was adopted in 2012, we think is retroactive in that it doesn't apply prospectively in connection with the Wade building. It only applies retroactively because the building has been here since the 1880s. So with that in mind, these corridors that they say are too small, what do you do about that? It's been there forever. We think this building is, the law as it's trying to be applied is retroactive, and we've addressed that in our papers we have submitted to the board. God, my time's running out too quick. Now, we also have pointed out, we hope, sufficiently that this is also, we think, an inverse condemnation. First of all, it's going to cost the owner of this building, if he complies with this, a considerable period of money, amount of money, somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 to $400,000. We've had this looked at by an architect, and those are the numbers we've got. It makes it totally uneconomical for him to put that kind of money into a building that he has no use for. He can't use that building once it's done. If he put $350,000 into the building, it's just going to be sitting there. What good does that do? We think that results in an inverse condemnation, and we've cited some cases and provided those to Mr. Albright, which he has, I'm sure, reviewed and we'll talk to you about later. Well, I guess my final statement is to say that as a part of this, and because the Board of Adjustment and Appeals did not find in our favor before, the Arlington Hotel has written a letter to the Historic District Commission and has advised them that he would like for the board to consider, that is, the commission consider permitting him to demolish the building. He can do that for $75,000, which is a far cry from what it would take to finish this building. I saw someone who said that if all the historic buildings in Hot Springs are down, it no longer becomes historic Hot Springs. I'd like you to keep that in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Brenda Brattenberg.
My name is Brenda Brandenburg, and I am a resident of Garland County, not of Hot Springs proper. But I would like to take this opportunity to give you a short history lesson and remind you that we are today facing the same thing that we faced with the Majestic Hotel. As you're well aware, that we are approaching 1 year to the day of when the fire took out one of the most historic buildings in our downtown area. And if we allow historic buildings to remain without bringing them up to at least an acceptable life safety code, then they will end up in the same setting and situation that we've seen with the Majestic. The Wade building, or Wade Clinic, as I have researched today, was built in 1927. I've never toured that building. However, I have toured the Majestic and some of the other properties that are in very, very poor condition. This is a life safety issue in Hot Springs, and I support our fire chief in bringing a resolution to the way that we can maintain the historic nature of those buildings, but still provide for life safety for visitors, for occupants, for businesses. It's just an important thing for us to do. I'm sorry. I'm not used to speaking in front of a large group, but this is something that I have a great passion for. And the reason that I have this passion is because Hot Springs is a historic district, as Mr. Stone shared. A district is created by a group of buildings, not just one building. I spoke with Vanessa McEwen today at the Historic Alliance, who shared with me the fact that if you take out one building in a district, you create a gap. And studies show that that can reduce the economic growth to the remaining area of that district. A district is what we have in downtown Hot Springs. We were honored by being placed on the, I'm sorry, let me find what it is. The downtown, specifically Central Avenue, was named as one of America's great streets by the American Planning Association. We have been given an opportunity with the fire that occurred at the Majestic to change our ways and stop allowing the atrocities that we see. And for that reason, I do believe that this appeal should be denied and that we should go forward and support our fire chief. And I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
I was just wondering if the option that they gave was, instead of spending $300,000, they could have it demolished. So that would be really not a good thing for our city streets. So the other options are economic development, which would bring in people to occupy those floors that would pay to have them developed. But if there's no one wanting those floors, what is your suggestion? And where do you suggest they get the money to do that?
Well, that's a good question. Historic buildings do allow for grants and certain tax write-offs to correct those problems that exist. So they are there. But I must remind you that I feel that owning a historic property is a privilege. It is a privilege. And with that privilege you gain responsibility. And you have a responsibility not to just yourself, but to the citizens of this city to maintain that historic property for generations to come. I think that what they have proposed will allow for the best protection without creating a money pit, if you will. By putting in fire suppression, that's probably the cheapest option to correct that code.
Any questions for her? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Board of Directors, do you have any comments? Would you want to speak to that?
Mayor, if you'll just indulge me, I just have a few series of short questions to address to either or both of the two speakers, that Mr. Stone and Chief Davis, if you'll allow me.
Yes.
They're short.
Okay.
Chief Davis, is there any renovation going on in current properties that are in the Thermal Basin District?
Oh, yes, sir. We looked at 2 remodels that are going on right now in buildings right on Central Avenue, and there are some others that are going on, especially around the Triangle, what's formerly known as Confederate Square. There's a lot of stuff going on there as well.
Okay. Either you or Mr. Stone can answer this one. Are the utilities still on in the building, such as the electricity and water?
In some of the buildings they are, and some of the buildings they're not.
All right, let me rephrase my question. Specifically with regard to the Wade building.
The Wade building's first floor utilities are still intact, yes, sir.
But only on the first floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Stone, you agree with that? Is the building insured?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yep, but... Okay. And then the last point, the previous speaker addressed this, and this is a question. And Mr. Stone, you may not know the answer to this question, but the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, as the previous speaker was indicating, they do have both the grant and tax incentive programs for historic structures. Now, I've got this one-page summary, and I'm just going to read the one paragraph I think that might be applicable to the Wade Building. And that's this. This is, again, from the Federal Rehabilitation Tax Coordinator at the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. There is also the 25% Arkansas Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program. This program is available to income and non-income producing properties. All projects must spend a minimum of $25,000 on qualified rehabilitation expenses to qualify. Income producing properties can earn a 25% credit on work up to $500,000 in eligible expenses, which on larger projects would max out at a credit of $125,000. Non-income producing properties can earn a 25% credit on work up to $100,000 in eligible expenses, which on larger projects would max out at $25,000 in credit. And the question I have, has the Arlington ever pursued, this particular tax credit program that I'm talking about?
Sir, I don't know if it's ever considered that program, but it has also considered those put out by ADFA, Arkansas Development Finance Authority, that has bonds and grants a certain amount of bonds for repairs to buildings such as this. I know they've looked at that and have been unsuccessful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Chief Davis, have you seen, or has someone in your department seen the building since the changes that they said that have been made?
No, ma'am, there's no reason to, because they would have had to have had a building permit to make the changes necessary to make the building safe. Okay. Until such time as they actually file a plan to make the building safe, then there's no reason for us to go back. Now, they did file a set of plans with the fire department to put a means of egress stair on the outside of the building, and also to put a fire sprinkler system into the building. We basically gave the property owners the choice of applying the building code to their buildings to correct the issues, or applying the existing building code. The existing building code is designed to be able to allow a building like the Wade Building, a historic property, that would have a difficulty meeting the current building code, a lesser code. And that was part of the tenet of putting together the Thermal Basin Fire District in the first place, to have a building code that was less stringent than the state code. And if you remember, we got permission from the state fire marshal to apply that here in Hot Springs.
Okay. When were these pictures taken?
I don't know, ma'am. I didn't take those pictures.
Mr. Stone, do you know when these were taken?
They were taken after the building had a new roof put on it.
Okay. So this is...
I don't know when that was, several months ago, maybe a year ago. I don't know what it was.
Okay. Have there been times of discussion with Mr. Scott where y'all sit down and discussed maybe a time element instead of the every 6 months? Since his building is not leased out and it's not making money, and there's nobody looking to make offices or apartments there, it would all be on him, instead of like some of the other buildings have people that have, are investing in a second floor restaurant or something. These are unoccupied. So is there a time adjustment that has been discussed with him?
No, ma'am. We want to be fair to everybody. It would be a situation to where that Mr. Scott's building, as it is unsafe to any firefighter that would have to go into it, or any EMT or any police officer. And, the state code clearly calls out firefighters as one of the protected groups by the fire code. If you look in Chapter 1 of the Fire Code, in fact, Section 101, it gives the general requirements on that, and conditions affecting the safety of firefighters and emergency responders during emergency operations are among the regulations that are there designed to protect those folks. And so the building, whether or not there's someone in it or not, matters not. It is a situation where, from a maintenance standpoint, it has been allowed to deteriorate to a point to where that it is unsafe. And so, regardless of whether or not it has any contents in it, regardless of not whether someone walks in it or not, it still has flammable finishes on the interior of the structure. it has wood on the walls, wood on the ceilings in many places, you will still have a fire that would run through the structure. Therefore, from our standpoint, the building is still unsafe. There are penetrations in walls and floors that would allow it to go from floor to floor or from compartment to compartment. There are also many other things in this building, as well as not having a stairwell that's wrapped in a 1-hour fire protection rating. There are some portions of it, when we went through it, that were unsanitary, had animal feces in the stairwell, things of that nature. So we just cannot allow that to go on in a building in Hot Springs, regardless of whether or not some people would argue whether it was occupied or not. It was used as a storage building for many years after it was closed down as an office. They didn't get permission from the fire department to use that as a storage building. It is a change of occupancy that occurred without the city's consent.
I have two questions. One is I don't understand this concept of inverse condemnation. Can you explain that to me, Brian?
Sure. It's a means of civil redress where a property owner can sue government for a regulatory taking, where your regulations are keeping me down and preventing me from making use of my property to such an extent that you have, in essence, condemned it without lawfully taking it.
Okay.
And they seek compensation for that taking.
Okay.
It can be a partial taking or a full taking.
Now, thank you. Also, this hearing is about an appeal of the determination that this building is unsafe. That is the only decision we're making as to whether we approve that appeal or not. Correct? In other words, we decide what the chief has determined that this building is unsafe.
I think it's three-pronged.
Okay.
I think Mr. Stone's threshold question is, does this code apply? If the code doesn't apply, it doesn't matter what the chief thinks about the building. The building is free from application of this code. But the code clearly says the provisions of this chapter shall apply to existing buildings constructed prior to the adoption of this code. So
Okay.
clearly, the Arkansas Fire Prevention Act is intended to apply to the Wade building or any other building that was in existence at the time of its passage. His next question is it's historic, so there should be some exemption. He says that it has to be a distinct hazard. Chief can talk to whether or not there's a distinct hazard, but it also says that it must be designated historic buildings and structures shall be provided in accordance with an approved fire protection plan. Chief, has he ever submitted an approved fire protection plan?
Only whenever we forced the issue and he had to submit the set of plans for the sprinkler system and the means of egress. We accepted that as an approved fire protection plan.
As an alternative?
As an alternative.
And that's not been implemented?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and so yes, then your last remaining question is it unsafe? According to the chief's application of our code, the Arkansas Fire Prevention Act, to this particular structure.
Okay. Would you walk that out a little further with me? And let's say what would be the next step if they do not have the money and cannot carry through on the, $300,000 of upgrade? What would be the next step?
Mayor, with all due respect, this is not a legislative function. This is a quasi-judicial function. Your duty this evening is to affirm the chief's determination, to overturn his determination, or to find something in the middle. What is to happen next really should not factor into that decision. It either is or it isn't.
Okay, and then just explain the difference in condemnation and condemnation.
Sure, I'm happy to. This is not condemnation, as we've indicated earlier. Condemnation is something that we've been talking about doing with Majestic. It's the kind of thing that we do with structures all over town when they become dilapidated and literally falling in on itself. It's not a taking. It's not a condemnation with eminent domain. So put the word condemnation out of your mind for this evening. This is an appeal of a technical code being applied to a particular set of facts. And your job this evening is to determine whether or not this code does apply to this building and whether or not the fire chief has appropriately applied that code in this set of circumstances.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, wait, whoa.
One clarification here. This is important because of the way the resolution is worded, okay? The resolution is worded in such a way that a yes vote affirms the chief's decision and the BAA's decision. A no vote overturns those decisions and essentially grants the appeal.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes. I could see it in your eyes.
Okay.
Okay, hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Davidson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Williams,
Aye.
Folly,
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
It is approved.
Okay, it is approved.
Upheld.
The next item of business is consider ordinance number 01503. First, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title. Would you please do so? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay. Would you please read by title now?
Ordinance 01503, an ordinance authorizing a contract for services with Hot Springs Boys and Girls Club, waiving the requirements of competitive bidding and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you now entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt? And a second?
Second.
Okay, and who is our staff person? Is that Lance that went away?
I think, yeah, Doretha actually did the barf, but I'll try to pitch hit for everybody. This is our annual contract for services with the Hot Springs Boys and Girls Club. As the board knows, City of Hot Springs has recreational programs, but the City of Hot Springs does not provide youth baseball summer league. And so the Hot Springs Boys and Girls Club are in a position to be able to provide that type of program for the city. And in doing so, we contract with them for $30,000 budgeted in the fiscal year 2015. Copy of the contract for services are attached, which shows the services that they will provide. There's also a year-end report that they are required to show us each year for what they provide, and that's attached in your packet from pages 129 through 150.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anyone here this evening from the
Yes, I think there
Boys
is.
and Girls Club.
Boys
There
and
we go.
Girls, yes. Please. Would you like to come down, please? Hi.
Hi.
Tell us your name and where you live, and we are welcoming you from the Boys Club.
Pat Ramsey. I'm the director of the Boys and Girls Club in Hot Springs. I live in Garland County. And we just wanted to thank you for your past help to the club. It's been a big support for us in providing youth baseball in the community. I think it's important. I think the community thinks it's important. And we serve a little over 500 kids from 4 to 15 years old. And it brings a lot of people out to the park. So I think it's very positive for the community, and we appreciate what you do in helping us.
Thank you. We appreciate what you do. And
Thank you.
it seems like it's growing, right, every year? Do you
Well,
have
we just
more?
added a new multipurpose field. Spent about $150,000 on a turf field that opened up more room for T-ball, and it's been real popular. Kids have loved it.
Great. Okay, do you have any questions for Mr. Ramsey?
Mr. Ramsey, what is the, on the tractor equipment maintenance entry, the scoreboard grant of $20,500? On page 130?
Oh, we may not have that.
What's the question?
What is the scoreboard grant?
We have a grant of $20,000 to apply to new scoreboards. And so we've got some bids coming in. We can't go over that number, so we're not quite sure how many we're going to be able to put up. But the scoreboards have been there for at least the last, I'm going to say, 10 plus years. And not only do we experience all kinds of problems with the electronic parts and the lights, and scoreboards have changed over the years quite a lot. So we're hoping that we can add that to it and make a big difference.
Look like your projected expenses have gone down quite a bit because of the new turf field. You're projecting 93,000 where in 2014 it was 212,000.
Well, that was an added expense with what we threw, with some monies that were passed down from someone that passed away. And so that was $150,000 that came in that particular year for that improvement. And, you probably won't see that for a while. So,
Okay.
so anyway, that's the reason for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This question is for council. I've heard some conversation that this falls into the same category that a judge in Little Rock ruled was applicable to some other relationship that the city had with another organization as to its constitutionality.
Yes, sir.
But I'm looking at this contract the same as I would a plumbing contract. That is to say, if we have a service that we need and we're not willing to provide plumbers, we go out and contract for plumbing. If we want to provide recreation services for boys and girls and we aren't willing to do that, we can contract for that. Is my assumption correct?
Yes, this is akin to an annual supply contract for youth baseball.
Okay, thank you.
Does it come out of the Parks and Recreation? Is that where it comes from? Recreation. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Any discussion? Okay, I don't think we had anybody signed up for that one. I didn't even look. Okay. Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Williams.
Aye.
Ramick.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Carney.
Aye. It is approved. Okay, that concludes the business section of tonight's meeting. Do we have any comments from our board members? Any comments? Everybody's all right? Nothing to say? Okay.
You're going to want a card tonight.
You're in one. Oh, that's great. Immediately following adjournment of tonight's business section, we'll have a did anybody sign up for the public comment section?
Yeah.
We'll have a public comment section immediately following. It'll take a few minutes to go off air and come back on. And hearing no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move, Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We are adjourned.